to order a regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen tonight, August 5th, 2019. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. You'll join us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is approval of minutes from our July 15th meeting.
I have a few corrections.
So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the 15th.
I will
Second
second
it? Okay, but you have some
with
corrections.
a few corrections. Page 2, the, probably should, under Public Works, should read, the crew went to a chainsaw class after this term. You know, but
No, they went to change some class. Okay.
on page 4, second paragraph from the bottom, Carl Pearson stated, Pearson should be spelled P-E-A-R-S-O-N. And the same on page 5, fourth paragraph from the bottom. Page 11, first paragraph, the light will only be for 3 directions eastbound on Route 74, will not have the ability to change the light, and then it should say will not affect the signal lights on Route 74 at Old Farms and Barrett's Parks.
All right, any other discussion, changes? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, is there anyone present to speak? Going once, going twice? Okay. That's right. All right, there is a list of correspondence in your packet. They're all available in the selectman's office. And that, for anyone watching our meeting or those here, those correspondence are always available at any time. Any questions on any of that? Status report. So there's several items on our projects list. I'll just give you a quick update. One of them is the salt shed. That is a project going back to the 17-18 fiscal year. We have been hoping to use steep money to do that project. We have not been approved for a steep grant. We had asked for redirecting some money from the Turnpike Road Phase 3 and Phase 4 grants that came through for some time. We have no response. We've actually been in communication with someone in the OPM Secretary's office who's been wonderful working with us and with Troy, and we're moving in a positive direction. So at this point, we still don't have any funds for that project. But now that we have in the 1920 CIP, we have the oil tank replacement, which was originally going to be part of that salt shed and oil tank as part of a reconfiguration at Public Works. We're looking at that project. We revisited again. I asked once again, and we actually started getting some response. So Kathy Taylor at OPM has been working with us, and we've passed the first 2 stages. And so let's hope that the final hurdle has been saying yes, we can use the funds to move forward. So I'll keep you updated on that. That's the most positive we've had in about 18 months in that discussion. The other item is the Willington Hill Fire Department parking lot replacement. That is with LoCIP funds, again from the 17-18 fiscal year. The last we left that was you were supposed to be getting some approvals from planning and zoning and moving forward with that.
Right, and it's just going back and forth. Nobody can give us a straight answer, so we don't know what to do with it. You can't get straight answers whether there was something in writing or not. Our version is we didn't agree to remove all parking lot for all 3 future phases of construction. And there's a version, I guess, that came from Sue Morganson, I guess. that you
So have you been working with Mike?
I haven't been working with Mike. Mike was talking to Carl last I knew, and was supposed to get an answer, and nobody got back to me on either of it. Again, I'm not sure, which way to approach it. And
Well, maybe check in with Mike so we can see these, if it's not a project that's gonna be done, that goes for any of these. If we can then free up the money for another project, if
Yeah,
it's not
absolutely.
going to be, but I didn't, we haven't assumed that, I just didn't know where it stood.
Yeah, like I said,
Between
it's
you
kind of
and
talked
James
back and forth,
Okay.
and I haven't got a straight answer yet, so.
The radio repeater, which is a new item for 1920, I know we talked about putting that on hold, looking at a different system, and Troy coming back with a new project in this budget year. And so that money will stay on hold, and we'll try to put the two together. We'll keep you posted on that. River Road basketball lighting is another item, using LoSiP funds for 1920. Nothing has moved forward with that project yet. I anticipate Maureen starting to look at it after summer camp is over. She's otherwise extremely busy. The phone system, I'm happy to say the new phones were installed in the town office building and the schools last week. So they're up and running. If you call, we can now see who you are. We can see your phone number. I'm hoping that will end all of our voicemail issues, all of our problems. I want to thank both Matt Jensen at the schools and Robin here for overseeing the installation of those systems between Center Hall and here. They went pretty flawlessly.
I mean, we still have some glitches.
Right. So I successfully set up my voicemail today. So
It's when the tech leaves for good is when we'll.
right. And we have a plan that if we need some increased training for anyone, we'll do that. They'll come in and do that. The last item was the roadside mower. It's set to arrive this Wednesday.
Yes.
Still. And then on the agenda tonight is awarding a lease, the actual lease for that. So that's where we stand on our open projects. Right. And that leaves us to Public Works. Troy?
All right, chip sealing is gonna start next week and some crack sealing. Let's see, we fixed a couple basins on Halls Hill.
I'm sorry, can you tell us what road you're gonna start chip sealing on?
That I'm not sure exactly on yet.
So when you do, you'll let Robin know so we
Yeah,
can
I'll
put
let-
out
yeah.
notice?
Yep.
Thank you.
We fixed the steps at the trailer on the bus lot. We installed 10 new stop signs that were not to code. We installed those this week. We installed AED boxes in the town facilities. So those will be with Alex there.
So just the boxes?
Just the boxes,
Just the boxes,
yeah.
and Alex, that may be a good opportunity for you to kind of show us.
So the town, this year's budget is for 6 AEDs between town office buildings and the school system. So they have come in. So there'll be one here, upstairs in the corridor, one at the senior center, transfer station, public works, and then 2 at Hall School. So these will be installed. The boxes are in, and then we're going to work on doing some little presentation thing and get them actually put in within the next 2 weeks. Is that's it.
Thank you. Thanks. Try to approve it. Okay.
And then, and then the traffic control with the boxes, Erica, Robin, and I met with the salesman this week, last week, sorry. And with that, so I got some prices on that. There's a 15-inch and a 12-inch. The 15-inch runs on solar. It's more of like a permanent thing. We can move it around, with the pole. Put that more on like a high-speed road, more and less. It's more visible. With the 15-inch, you can actually put like a saying, like slow down or thank you. There is a blackout mode on it that. Okay, never mind.
You can put happy faces on it?
Yeah, you can put happy faces on it.
You can
Yeah,
put a frowny
a
face on
frowny
it.
face. Yeah.
Just eyes, can you do eyes?
I think he said
There's
yes, you
yeah.
set, like the bulbs, you set what you want to
you want,
be,
yeah.
but can you imagine driving down the road and a big angry face comes up like, you're going too fast.
So I think we'll be purchasing 2 of those. And then he also said that they sell like a rubber mat type thing that can be bolted into the road. It's not a speed bump, it's almost like a tracking pad where they do them for different speeds, different lengths. So if it's, say it's a 25-mile-an-hour road, it'll be, say, 20 feet long in the width of the road. And it's basically, it'll rumble when the car, so those comes to almost to a stop to slow them down. But once again, they can be plowed over, but I don't really recommend, they should be removed for the winter time. They do bolt into the road, so.
It's a lot of bolts.
Yeah, so it's, and all those holes need to be filled after. He says you can caulk them, but then we'd have to put it somewhere different, the following year. And it leaves holes in your road, which isn't a good thing. We're trying to avoid that.
And then we really have to determine what roads we thought they should go on.
And I'm assuming those are not cheap
No,
No, not now.
and don't fit in our budget for this year.
Maybe one would, depending on
Yeah.
how long and how wide you would like that. But they start on an average anywhere, I think, between 2,500 and they just keep climbing. The more sections you add to them, the more pricey it gets. I had a salesman stop the other day. They actually can mill into the road about a 1/2 inch and put like a rubber coating, and they can actually put like a slow or slow down. But once that, again, it's permanent, it's there, it's not gonna come out. So we'd have to see what roads are there to put them on. And that's a cost too, and it's an expensive cost, but it's an option.
Yeah, and it seems that, like, having the monitors there to help us figure out what are if we get the ones that can be moved.
Yeah, we can't put they do come with a radar that would actually take a picture, but it's against the law for Connecticut. If we had our own police force here in town, then they could use it for their own, but we can't, as a town, just take the information. With all the privacy acts, we can't do that. So that's an option that we should go towards.
who we met with was the same company Troy was already looking at for the signs, was the information that the resident had shared with us. So it was perfect, we were looking at the same thing she was looking
That's about it.
at. Okay. Thank you. Oh, and catch basin cleaning.
Oh yeah, that's all done, yep. They came through and cleaned them all out.
Okay. So the next, the first item is awarding a 7-year lease for the new roadside mower. So you have in your packet, Donna had sent out bid request, they closed on the 31st. We received 3 bids, one from Signature Public Funding Corp. The rate was 2.56%, and the semi-annual payment, payments in arrears, was $9,174.70. Bid from Municipal Leasing Consultants for 3.7%. That was $9,344.82. And from Tax Exempt Leasing Corp at 3.15%. And that was that semi-annual payment was $9,370.76. So these are all under what we had budgeted. If you recall, the budget for the 1920 lease payment was $12,870, so we're favorable $3,695, and give or take depending on what we take. So I will make a motion, that we move to award the 7-year lease in the amount of $116,913 for the 2018 Massey Ferguson roadside mower to Signature Public Funding for 2.56%.
Second.
Any discussion?
Did you want to read the other part into the minutes?
Yep, sure. So there'll be 2 payments a year if we go with this motion passes. There'll be $9,174.70, with the exception of the first year. There'll only be 1 payment of that amount, so that's where we're doing payments in arrears. And that is because originally when we had done you can do it either way. You can do 2 right away, or we can do 1 in arrears. When it went through the CIP process, I think it got missed that we needed it this summer, and Donna only put in the budget for 1 payment next year. But it's still something we're able to do, which is good. And again, if if this motion carries, then we'll be favorable at $3,635, which is always a plus, so. Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. A big thanks to Donna for the bid work she did, and to Troy for getting that overall cost down considerably, so, thank you. And it should be here Wednesday.
Wednesday morning.
So if it's not raining Thursday, I assume there'll be some serious mowing going on.
Yep.
All right, you'll recall at previous meeting, we changed the number of alternates to the Emergency Services Efficiency Committee to 2, and Willington Hill number 1 had only put forth 1 alternate, so now they have asked that we add a second alternate, and they are requesting it to Trevor Gantick. So I will move to appoint Trevor Gantick as an alternate member of the Emergency Services Efficiency Committee effective July 15th, 2009. Okay. That's like, effective August 5th, 2019, expiring once the charge of the committee has been completed.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That was when I came back from vacation.
Yeah, the Monday from vacation is rough. I will note that I did, because this committee is an offshoot of the Board of Selectmen, and they do not have a chair yet. I called the first meeting so that the general business could be done, and I think Robin sent out an email to everyone on the committee, setting the meeting for August 20th. I anticipate at that point that the agenda will be, and we're still working on it, call to order, elect a chairperson, discuss goals and the charge, and then set meeting dates, amongst other things. So I don't anticipate it being too long, but you'll start with a chairperson and then they'll lead the meeting from there. The next item of business is discussion of a memorandum of understanding between the town and the library board for accounting services. So Donna and Diane Buick, our treasurer, have been working with the library board to discuss us handling, processing their bills. Similar to what we do with the fire departments, they receive a grant, instead of getting the money, it's moved over into a fund. They bring in their statements, invoices here, and we pay them out of this office. The library board has been having some challenges as of late. They've been without a director for some time. And it's something that both our finance office and the board, at least when we began the discussion, seemed to be in favor of moving towards.
The board is divided,
Okay,
so we're not in agreement of the best way to go forward. We've got a lot of people leaving the next month.
okay. Jen, you're the treasurer?
I'm currently the
The treasurer.
treasurer as of Thursday. So,
So my understanding is that you had, I think there happened to be someone on the library board prior to who had some considerable accounting skills.
correct, like back in time, there was an accountant on the board who did the accounting, and then regular people took over who did not know how to do accounting. And so it's just been this snowball effect of things getting wonkier and wonkier and wonkier. And so now we're trying to figure it out, the town's trying to figure it out, and we're still not balanced.
Okay.
So that's a huge issue right now.
Right.
Until we're balanced, we can't really do
It's a
it.
big problem. So we
It's a
need,
problem.
we keep the profit and loss statement.
Yeah.
And until we have some reports that we need from the people doing the bookkeeping on that end, Donna can't finish her year-end work
Right.
here. And so it's causing a little bit of problem, never mind the elected members of the board who did not need to come to the board with a certain set of accounting skills, are now being challenged with some of that work.
Yeah.
So I think the proposal at the time had been that we would take it over again, similar to what we do with the fire departments, and work in that direction. But that seems to be, now there seems to be a little bit of should we or shouldn't we?
There's a should we or shouldn't we, we all need to sit down at the same time and go over everything.
Okay.
We've been working on hiring a new director, and have the library's broken, so we have to fix all of that. So there's been distractions keeping us from that. I mean, Heather's done a lot of work to kind of pull everything back together, but now we need to decide if we're going to do the switch over or not, and what that's going to look like, and talk more
About that. So what you have in front of you is, I believe you should both have a copy of the current proposed. Donna and I did look at it today, and one additional item that I think needs to go in is to talk about term, and putting some language in there about how long. Even if it's, we do this for a year and it auto renews, or we do this for 5 years and it auto renews unless within such time. There's similar language in the agreement we have for our fire services that talks about that. So we talked about putting that in. Except for that, the town attorney seems fine with the agreement. There are some things that would have to happen on the libraries, or change on the library's end. And we would take over their payroll as well. Our payroll is bi-weekly. So it would change from monthly at the library to bi-weekly.
Which actually makes way more sense.
It does.
Makes way more sense, yeah.
I don't suppose too many of them would really hate that. That would be a good thing. There's some things that would have to change as far as banking. The town treasurer would have to have access to the checking and savings accounts. The library would have to deliver their invoices to us or have them mailed to us. And when we get to that point, the finance office would then communicate with you what those timeframes are and when we cut checks.
Right.
There'd have to be certain payers on the check, would be someone from the library director, library treasurer, and then the town treasurer. And then we would need, for payroll, we would need a worksheet listing out all of the information on who worked when, and we have that signed off on before. And some of those are items that would be worked out between the director and our library treasurer and Donna's office once we sign the agreement.
Okay.
So I think as far as the details of the agreement, a lot of that has been hashed out, but the library board is 100% on board, ready to move forward.
Do we have a copy of that?
I can give you a copy.
Yeah, that would be good.
Again, we still have to add the language.
Okay.
And I believe I know Heather had it at one point.
Okay.
You could have this copy.
Okay.
We talked today about adding the last piece of language. And this was all discussions between Heather, maybe Mary Pat, and then Donna and Diane.
Right.
Been speaking about it, and then on my end, Donna comes to us.
Okay.
Because it's an agreement between the town, that's where we get involved. I think we thought for purposes of this meeting, we would be ready to move forward with the agreement, and some of that changed.
Apologies.
That's okay, it's not your fault.
No, we've had I just took it on and we have to get all of this stuff done
Before,
basically before
yeah.
my term's up.
Okay, and I know Donna is eager for us to move in a forward direction because there's a lot of uncertainty and a lot of information that's not coming here that we need to know in order to finish the year. So if you could take back one thing with you, it would be that I know you have an account temp handling the books. Donna needs her to respond to me.
Okay. I will,
So if you could have some communication with her.
Yep.
She needs some reports and things, and until we get those, it makes it challenging to do our portion here. But on this end, I don't think this is a bad idea. I think this is a plus for both the library board and the town. I think it's positive. But it's something that belongs to the library at this point, John.
And I think we need this. I've just had a few questions about approving expenditures by the library over the past few years. Some things I think have been spent which never showed up in the minutes of any of your meetings.
in terms of coming in on the treasurer's report
Um,
or bigger in general?
I read minutes. It's stuff I think was spent which was not in your annual budget, and that covers most of everything.
Mhm.
So I'd really like to see a little bit more control over the spending on that.
Okay.
this is one way of doing it.
Well, I would disagree. At this point, it works similar, again, to the fire departments. They control how they spend, they come to the town and they're given a grant, and all we do is move it into a fund and pay out of that. We do not approve or disapprove their expenses.
Yeah.
That's done through the budget process as a whole. If the Board of Finance questions that, we simply are paying the bills for them and doing the accounting work. We would still, in Donna's office, and, our board would not be approving or disapproving their bills and their expenditures. That is under the direction of the library board of directors.
But the library board of directors then have to leave a record that they approved it, is what I'm saying. I think there are a couple of things that, if I understand it correctly, someone was being paid and no one was quite sure why.
I don't know that one,
Oh,
but that's kind of within our own scope.
yeah.
Right, I mean, we don't, every expense we have does not come across our board.
Right. So in the end, it all works out and we figure out all the anomalies. And I mean, we've had to spend a lot of money on repairs lately.
You know,
We were there for that one.
I know especially that's coming, and that's still something that's gonna have to be done,
Yeah,
and that's why you have a library board, and it'll get done. So.
yep.
So quick question, so is the process, though, maybe this is what I'm hearing John ask, if you get an invoice for the library board, or, but you don't require any sort of like documentation that it was on, the fact that we get it means that it's paid. It gets
They would
paid.
have been approved, so there's an
It's
approval
approved.
process on their end.
Yeah.
For
So,
me.
like for now, Stuart or Tom, they bring their bills here, they've been approved by their governing bodies, and then when they get here, they've already been approved to pay. So the
Right.
same thing would happen at the library, they would be looking at their bills, or let's say the Eversource bill, they just redirect here. That will, suffice their approval for those are the kinds of things, anything you need to look at, the fire departments look at, approve, and the library board would work the same way. They're deciding, oh, that invoice is not okay, it wouldn't come to us to get paid. By the time we get it, it's been okayed by them to pay.
The way we do it, we have a purchase order signed by the chief and the president, and then we specifically put what line item it's gonna be charged off to. So that way there's no chance in the accounting department, oh, gee, does it go here, does it go there? And then monthly, we get reports back from the finance office, knowing how our spending's going for the year, so we can track all of that.
So is that a change for like the kind of accountability that currently the library board uses for their expenses?
Sorry, keep going.
Just, is that different, or is that kind of the same process that you were to go through? Or does that allow some more checks and balances for your own spending?
I have absolutely no idea.
I think things are so up in the air
Things
there
are
that
so up in the air, and the last time I was treasurer, things were completely different than they are now. I would like more details about how it goes with the fire department and how everything goes back, just those details.
Heather was the treasurer, is that the way it was, right?
Heather's treasurer,
Right.
she's,
So I think why she sat down in the meetings with Donna and they talked about those, so now Jen will have to get involved in that so that you can
Yeah.
better understand. And they can show you the kind of documentation that they
Yeah.
use. So it's really you're saying yes and then giving it to us.
so that the town is our accounting service.
That's it, correct.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, and then we take care of all our bills and approve them and just send them through.
And I think it's an easy misunderstanding by people that because we pay them, we say yay or nay. When they get to us, we say, no, you can't have that apparatus, you don't get to buy those, pieces
Right.
of equipment, and we don't. That is all part of their budget. They get a grant, and the accounting office is simply paying the bills
Right.
with their money, but instead of them doing the work on their own.
But there's no other involvement there's no coming back to the library with anything else. We got our own little thing.
Yeah, it would have to
our little
be,
thing,
I
And
mean,
I'm
there
in
were,
between them.
right, something would have to be really off for them to come back and say, are you sure you wanted us to pay this? And
Which is
it
good.
would be glaring, because you don't often see, do you ever see?
We'll
Commissioner
get
Dodd
questions
back and
every
say
once
no?
in a, we'll get questions every once in a while.
Yeah, if something
just to-
seemed off from your normal, just to make sure that you didn't miss it, because they're used to
Duplicate or
seeing them.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll catch, Tish and predecessors catch mistakes that we make, or the invoice is bad or something like that. We'll occasionally check ones that, they make as
And
well.
before they do or do not pay, there's communication between the two, so that they're aware. You have some bills come here, correct?
No.
You have nothing, none of your electric bills, your phone
Nope.
bills? Okay. Did I take that out? So everything goes through them, they approve and then bring it here. And that could be the most challenging, is getting the bills here, so that they can get paid on time. Because they gotta go through you, you know, they have a 30-day window.
Right.
By the
So
time
they've
someone at
got
the library approves it, and then it gets here to then get in the cycle.
Right, so we can work in it.
That's right.
Counter
Mhm.
of it.
So those are some of the basics, again, sitting down with Donna and understanding the specifics.
Right, so
And then,
yeah.
I think if, unless this board had some serious concerns about us moving on, this is going to add more work to our finance office. It's obvious. Donna believes in time they should be able to absorb it in the natural day-to-day workflow. We're already having some challenges and some changes with the treasurer position and really cleaning that up and separating out treasurer duties from accounting duties. So between the library coming on and those duties, we're looking at the potential to need at least a temp for a short period of time to flush out how much extra work that is, so we know what we need. And Donna's looking at that with Diane and potentially talking with the Board of Finance about some extra funds for that, so you'll hear about that too. Do you have any other questions, Rob?
We're good?
So I'll add that language to the agreement, get it back to Donna, communicate with you, and then
Then
we'll
I'll
continue.
present it. Yeah,
Present it, and we'll continue the discussion about when and how.
it's not gonna be overnight.
No.
You probably got into this because you like to read, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to read something else, but
Accounting was not in that box I checked.
no, I do pictures.
Well, thank you. So thank you for your service to the library and to the town. Appreciate it. All right, so the next item is some tax refunds. I will move to refund Mark Beckley. That's what that was? Yeah, a certificate of correction in the amount of $13.36.
Second.
Any discussion? I think I'm correct, I believe it's Buckley. I read it too.
I did Beckley, but.
No, it is Buckley.
Yeah.
It is Buckley. All right, any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. I move to refund Virginia Brousseau $238.52 on a certificate of correction.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, old business. The property and financial request from the fire department. So, as promised, I received back, I apologize, it was midday on Friday, the attorney sent, and I shared with John, and I know Liza was away, so has not had time to look at them, his suggestions and changes to the two different agreements. Again, I know Liza's not, so we can talk about them, how much you've been able to look at them now. One of the questions on the agreement, if we look at the one for $50,000, there's mention in the wording of various structural defects that include concrete defects, roof defects, and plumbing defects. Can you talk to us about how you're handling those changes, fixing the defects?
Go ahead, Mike. I'm not sure which defects you're.
Yeah, we
So
don't have that information in front of us, so.
You've never seen, this, the wording came in your agreement to us.
I don't
Due
have
to
that.
various structural defects at Willington Hill Fire Department's current firehouse, which include concrete defects, roof defects, plumbing defects, it is Willington Hill Fire Department's hope that the property would eventually be used as a location for the construction of a new firehouse.
I thought you were talking about the new property.
No, so some of the concerns are, who's paying to fix the old property? And do we have any assurances does the town have assurances that the new property won't suffer from such defects?
So we ensure that some things are not being repaired because they're significant enough, or they haven't been budgeted, or they would have to be CIP requests. Some things are being repaired, some are not reasonable, like the ADA, the bathrooms are not ADA compliant, that bubbles up every couple of years. Someone who attends the hall says, how come your bathrooms aren't ADA compliant, isn't this a public building? And we go through a whole conversation about that. But that's, tens of thousands of dollars potentially.
But that's not something that you have to do, correct? That is, you were grandfathered,
Correct.
but that's not a concrete defect, a roof defect, or a plumbing defect?
No, that's an example of a plumbing defect, that's an example of where this building's not adequate, which is why we've been looking at other options.
Okay.
Okay, well, you say roof defects, for instance. This is not, we're not starting the new building tomorrow.
Correct.
And so you'll be using the old building for probably a period of years.
Correct.
So you're still gonna have to maintain that building for that period of time. That's gonna.
Yeah, and our thoughts are to get by with what we can and put in for repairs and capital improvement if we need to. If we feel it's detrimental to the roof falling apart or what have you, then we're gonna put it in capital improvement or request the money through budget, to keep going in the building. But in terms of huge repairs, like concrete repairs and things like that, we're again trying to put that stuff off because all the other reasons that we're requesting the fire department. So, we're trying to put things off because we're throwing good money at that, if you will.
I guess I have concerns about that only because there aren't funds or a plan currently for a new firehouse.
Right, and
So,
again, just like the
we want to make
parking
sure
lot.
that the townspeople, right, pay for the service and then give you money towards maintaining, to provide fire service, that the building is in as part of that, and making sure that it's okay. So, again, it was your language that you had these defects and a concern, and these notes came from our town's attorney about who's fixing those, because the building still has to.
Yeah, and we don't have a plan to change operation in any way. If we can put off repairing something, then we will. If we need to, we'll go to CIP for it like the parking lot. We'll put that off as long as possible. We could have put in for it years ago, but we could get by with it. Just like our refurbing one of our ATs. We've had it in the CIP plan, but we've been putting it off ourselves because we know it's coming, but we don't need it yet. So, we're not going to change the way we operate in any facility. The new property across the street will certainly alleviate some of the issues, again, with housing and storage and space for vehicles and things like that. But we don't have any plans on changing the way we budget or operate if we need it. Problems arise and.
So, I guess should be safe to say that if you have these defects, you should be using budgeted money to fix them, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And again, it was language that came from your attorney in the agreement that pointed them
Yeah.
out.
Okay.
And it's certainly concerning that
Don't have that
the
confirmed.
building has structural defects, and so you want to put up a new firehouse, but then the question is, what are we doing to repair them if such time as the town doesn't have the funds or doesn't move to put in a new facility? This is separate from a new firehouse, the purchase of this property.
Right. And again, like I said, we're just, if it comes up and it's needed, we're not going to change the way we operate. We'll come to the capital improvement board or we'll come to the board of finance and say, hey, the roof is leaking again. We had a roof leak and stuff that we were able to manage and repair ourselves. So if it was catastrophic and the whole roof needed to come down, then it could be next year, it could be 2 years from now, but we'll just proceed as we normally have with, again, all properties. Is the plan.
You'll see also, we had discussed the repayment of the funds in the event the property was sold without, for any reason. And I shared what was discussed here. He had the language from our minutes and the things that we had said, and you can see the language that the attorney is suggesting. as how that would be paid in both agreements.
Yeah. I had on the agreement for the $10,000, WHFD is requesting $10,000 in town funding to assist in additional cost of maintenance, utilities, and insurance associated with the property. Such funding would be added to WHFD's annual budget request to the town and will be allocated based on estimates provided in Schedule A. Not quite sure. This is saying that that would be, every year we would add $10,000 to the budget, to the fire department's request for this purpose. Does this legally bind the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance to grant that $10,000?
Well, again, I mean, from where we sit, I plan to use that money until we can get into the property and properly budget. We weren't able to do that this year because of time constraints. So that number may go up or down, but it would be submit with our budget annually, it would be reviewed by the Board of Finance and discussed at that point. Again, it could go up or down. Our goal is to make it go down.
So maybe their language, I think from what I'm hearing you say, language so that it's specific to this is a one-time request. And then anything else is going to come in their annual budget.
Budget request, right.
They want, this is operating budget,
Yeah.
but this is one time. If you read it, it does look like it could bind us to 10,000 a year. And that's not for us to say.
Not for us to say, but it could cause problems a couple years down the road if the Board of Selectmen says, we got a lot of other things to spend money on, we're not giving it to you, then.
We don't decide how much money they get in their budget. It's not in the selectmen's budget, so we do not, in this case, they're coming to us now to ask for a request, but past this point, we do not decide on the
So that would be the
budget
Board
for the
of,
Board of Finance.
Board of Finance.
And again, with our budget request annually, will change obviously. And so, like you said, Erica, maybe put it in one time for this year, fiscal year. And if we need to, I don't think it needs to go in that agreement unless you guys do, but again, we'll be going to the Board of Finance with a change in our budget, our operating budget, as a result.
If they say yay or nay, then.
Right, again.
It does not, we do not have that say.
Right.
You need the 10,000 this year, and not knowing where the money, not understanding where the money would come from next year, so that you wouldn't need it.
Again, John, I don't know. I mean, our goal is to possibly rent the property, like I said, the house out, and alleviate most of that. Or if we can't do that, or if something happens, I mean, it may be in our request for our next year's budget. But
It would have to be. So he said,
yeah,
they went
I
through the
don't know.
budget and they asked for $1 million. They got $1 million of budget, I'm using fake. There you go. And
I vote for
here,
that.
so now they're asking us for 10,000
Yeah, I hear
because
a
this is a
second.
brand
Yeah.
new discussion.
Right.
Come March, by March it'll be all done. Come December, when they put in a budget request, I would think they're planning to add,
They would absorb these costs.
these costs are going, for next fiscal year, going to be in the budget that they present. So we could probably, it's safe to say, you should anticipate their budget going up at least $10,000. What's accepted is between them and the Board of Finance.
For the first year, this upcoming year, I understood that. But what I'm saying is, I'm not sure if you're planning to rent the house. Well, that'll have income too, but that will entail a lot of costs in itself.
It
Absolutely.
would mean dividing the property.
And dividing the property would mean, I'm sure you'd have to pay tax on at least some of the property.
And again, we're looking at all these options right now. We're trying to figure out the best way to do it and the best way to save money. And so it doesn't cost the $10,000 a year. But again, we haven't been in there, we haven't done anything with it, and we're moving forward with, trying to get some separation or some answers for separation. And
And finally, have we an answer on the tax question?
The assessor determines the tax.
Well, should we not determine,
The
An
tax,
update on that. I was just upstairs
okay?
at the beginning of the meeting, turning in the application that's required, that our attorney recommended we file within 10 days of closing, which was today. Which is essentially the tax exemption application for that property. And it's 14 pages of bureaucracy, as you would expect, important, and a whole bunch of copies of all sorts of stuff attached. He's got to go through that process and review it, and then make an initial determination, and then that determination can be positive or negative, and then it can go to Board of Tax Appeals or review or whatever it is, and then it could go other places. There are multiple different layers it could take before we know the final answer of whether it would be determined exempt. However, our attorney's recommendation and belief is that as the other fire department properties are not taxed, and as is typical in municipalities in Connecticut, he anticipates that the decision would be in favor of not taxing the property as it currently exists. To your point about if we were to rent the house, and Erica's point, there would be another conversation. We'd have to have a conversation with zoning, we'd have to have a conversation with the assessor again, and that would potentially mean determining some part of the property is now considered taxable. So that would start this sort of exemption conversation over again at that point, which is why we don't have answers to these things right now.
and again, my understanding is if you want to rent the house, it has to be a separate piece of property, completely divided.
There is, that is the 99%, looks like that's what the path would be through the zoning to make it compliant with zoning would be to subdivide the property.
And that's just because you can't have two primary uses on one.
Right, the primary use is the main building.
All right, so I will talk to Ryan about adding language to that.
And then
Yes.
I have one question about the $10,000 one. Since this isn't necessary, this isn't for the purchase of the property, it's for supporting the property, I don't know that we need the 15% back on that. Since we're
It's
talking
not
about-
back on that, it's back on the purchase of the property, so it just, once again, speaks to returning
Oh,
the
okay.
money on the property. I asked the same question.
Okay. So then we're just talking about the 50,000 plus 15%?
Correct,
Not the additional 10,000?
correct.
Okay. That's not clear on this. No, it says,
So you can pay the 10,000.
it says the 10,000 that was contributed plus 15% back. And my
Yeah,
understanding
that's
is,
not, that's,
Your thoughts on that,
I agree
Tom?
that that's not correct.
Well,
okay,
that's,
so that was my
Your thoughts on
question.
That's, well, I'm not sure about the 15%, I'd want the 50,000 back, and I would think the 10,000 coming back would also be fair.
Well,
Fit-
just keep in mind
So
that
this is-
10,000 is for
right.
ongoing
So,
maintenance,
but-
and if only $1 was spent on maintaining the property, then that is all that the town finance office would
Right.
process, a $1 bill.
these are the
And then if the
suggestions
property was
from
sold-
from our town attorney, that be that we ask for that.
Well, I would just throw that back as a question, because,
Repaying the 10,000, but not the 15%? If the purchase,
No.
or not repaying the 10,000 at all?
so that was my question, like, my understanding was that there's a reason why these two pots of money were separated. One, because this is going towards the purchase of the property, and this is going towards increased operational costs for the department. And so if we're talking about an increased operational cost for the department, whether it's $10,000 for the new property, or it's $10,000 for the existing property, or whatever, like, my thought was that the reason they were separated is because they're two different pots of money.
They are.
This is going, right.
But our attorney recommended that be the language that we use, that we asked for repayment of that money. He thought that was,
But again, with the increase in the $10,000, I mean, it could be, it's gonna be flexible.
well, this year you're only gonna
Budget.
get 10,000. I
Right,
guess
right.
it won't really be flexible. You won't
Right.
know what you needed, so you may have
Right,
to
but
offset
again-
some of your own money. But the advice on our side was that we, that we asked for that. If the board is vehemently opposed to that, we can take that language out. But when given to the town attorney, for our interest, that's what he believed was the best.
Erica, a
If we
question
don't
of
agree.
clarification on that,
Sure.
maybe you had a conversation with the attorney that might help answer this. Is the idea that if the property was, if 6 months from now, for whatever reason, the fire department sold the property, we already kind of know where we are on the $50,000. But is the thinking about the $10,000 that out of the money that the department, separate from the returned money for the capital expense, that some of the other capital money from the sale should then refund the town for the maintenance costs? Is that kind of what the thinking is?
That's what it reads. That's what it reads. I mean, it's just that in addition to, if it's not used for the intended purpose, which was to put a firehouse on the property, you pay back the 50,000 plus, you pay back the 10,000 plus. That we made these, the townspeople are agreeing, us on their behalf to make these requests, thinking B was gonna happen. If B doesn't happen, you repay it.
Right.
And that's the advice. It may not be how you saw it, but that's how.
Well, no, I just want to understand the thinking so that when we present it back to our attorney and they say, well, what do you think they're going for, they can understand, so they can process it and respond to it.
That basically it was in the best interest of the town to ask for it in that way.
Okay.
Because I fear that you might be being way over optimistic when it comes to the maintenance costs on this. Here you have plans like to rent out the church for functions and all that, but I understand the church does not have a commercial kitchen. So right now you rent out your hall, which has a nice commercial kitchen. In order to switch it over to the church, then would you have to install a commercial kitchen, which would be a very expensive?
We're aware of all those, we're working through all of those concerns.
But that may not be money that the town pays for. If they want to renovate the facility for use like that, maybe that's not money they plan to ask us for. They're asking for money to operate and simple maintaining is what I'm
Basics,
understanding,
yeah.
basic
Well, that's what I
maintaining.
would understand, but they're also counting on making money from this, which in order to make money, they're going to have to invest a great amount of money,
And
which,
that's what you're gonna do with it. And then the other thing is, you know what it boils down to? The fire department is trying to work with the town to help the town, because the town in past and everything, they went over and bought all kinds of property for recreation and spending ridiculous money, which the property ain't been realistic used for how much money they spent and stuff like that. You know, the fire department put in their own money, not the town's money, what they raised and how they got the money, to try to help the town in the future. And it boils down to everybody's trying to fight it.
I don't feel like we're trying to fight it. Our job is to make sure we do what we believe is best
We're
for the
working
town.
town.
And we believe that what we send, if we send this to a town meeting, that we've done our part on the town's behalf.
Yeah.
And so you have to do your part for the fire department, and we have to do our part for the
Yeah.
town. And sometimes it takes a while before that gets there, and if we can get to an agreement, and then the townspeople vote on it, then we move forward. It's not trying to fight you, it's trying to do our due diligence on the part of the town. And that's what we're charged with.
And John, going back to what you said about us being optimistic, we are, and we're hopeful that we can alleviate some of the cost of this purchase, you know, by doing these things. If we can't, then we can't, but we're gonna try. We're gonna try our best to make it as painless as possible financially.
And we've had a couple of these conversations before, and I do mean this with all due respect. I think there's a point at which our influence is no longer relevant to their decision making. So we can have a lot of questions, and we can be skeptical of the decision that they made to purchase the property. That's not our decision to make. They've done it. It's done. So whether it works out, awesome. If it doesn't work out, then we will be coming back to this contract and saying, okay, give us our 60,000 plus back. right? So, right, like our input, join the fire department and sit in their meetings and give input that way, because at this point, like, our decision-making is done.
And our decision-making is done once we decide what the wording on the agreement is. We can't sign it until it goes to the Board of Finance and town meeting for the townspeople to decide. And then if they say yes, we move forward with signing an agreement. If they say no, you purchase property, you already own the property. As of last week or 2 weeks ago, the property is there, and they're going to do with it as they can. I won't say what they can, because there's always someone who tells you what you can and can't do with it, right? And so they're gonna move, right, there's always, so they'll move forward the way they want. We may have questions, but I would anticipate, John, outside of this money, if they suddenly needed another big lump sum for something, they'd have to come back before the town. And if they want to rent it out and feel it needs a commercial kitchen, they may not feel that that is a burden that the town needs to take on, or an expense, I don't mean to say burden.
Maybe you'll
The
do it.
expense
They
the
have to
town.
come to the town.
Right,
No,
you
no,
never,
there's a lot
no,
of
but that's, I think they're far from that. I heard that when you were planning and zoning, and I've heard that here before. You were just trying to figure out a way to purchase it.
things- the property is needed.
Right, and so you've already purchased it, you own it, and I'm guessing they're using it.
John, if I could
Yeah.
help, maybe, I don't know if it'll answer or make you feel any better, but respond to your concerns and also echo Robin's comments. Certainly we're being optimistic, and certainly we're taking some risks. But we've taken most of the risk on our own budget. And we are not the kind of people that take risks lightly. You know, we take a lot of risks in the work we do for the town. And everything we're doing, and I'm gonna get on my soapbox a little bit here, everything we're doing, including sitting here going through meeting after meeting, including the fact that I'm paying for a babysitter right now so that I can be here, is because we're devoting effort into improving the community. And it is, at a minimum, frustrating when we are understandably doing due diligence, but we are also not asking for any special favors, not asking anyone to break any rules, but every single place where there is a judgment call on a question we ask, we get the most possibly restrictive judgment. And that is frustrating. We are optimistic, but we're committed. You don't get people to spend all this time and to give up this. Your father, I believe, was a previous treasurer of the fire department we're talking about, right?
He was secretary, but he was.
Secretary, I'm sorry. Everyone on this board and half the people in this room who aren't even members now are somehow connected to the fire department. Like Robin said, we are breaking our butts to try to do something good for the community. This purchase doesn't put money in any of our pockets. We are trying to get to a good place, and we are slogging through molasses, and we understand that's part of the process, but also realize that we are committed people and we've thought long and hard about this, all right? We're not stupid, and we're not oblivious to the risk and the hard work. We're doing it. Some of us in this room, Robin's been doing it for, I don't know, almost 50 years now.
I've been in there for that long. And another thing, just to throw out real quick, it wasn't that many years ago, the fire department took their own money, not the town's money, and put a bay on the side of the thing for the new truck, because the old part of the firehouse is so small and so, to put a truck in there. We took over $50,000 out of our own pocket, not the town's money. And we talked to the, part of my construction outfit, Becker construction outfit, some of the other big construction outfits. They donated a lot of stuff, and the town was nice at the time too. They had the sweepings, which they called off the roads from chip sealing, and the town donated the stone to help backfill inside of it. And, that come at the fire department. And we put the bay on for the town of Warren, not, to help the town out for the apparatus just coming up.
Thank you. So if you could take the time to take another look again, if you have any other changes, and I know, again, Liza's seeing it for the first time tonight, and get them to me so that I can have the attorney draw some up, so then we can share that with the fire department, they can take back. So my anticipation of the next couple of steps are two things. One, we need to get an agreement that we both agree on, and then we would determine if we're going to call a town meeting. The Board of Finance is meeting next week, where they're gonna talk about the money side, and if we have the money side. So for us, I guess it's a matter of if we agree to put this question to the townspeople, then we have something in place, not signed until it's, because we don't have control over the money, the townspeople do, they are a legislative body. So we'll get this agreement, I'll get it to you, they can take a look at it. Hopefully by then the Board of Finance is met, and then we can move in a forward direction. I will say, at this point, you purchased the property, so we're not keeping you from purchasing the property. I think it would be in the best interest to hold off until probably after a Labor Day, if we start talking about that time frame for a town meeting, so that it's summertime. We're not trying to, push, it doesn't appear that we're trying to push anything through. Lots of people are, that's just my, and we have
You're
to.
gonna be there anyway after the Board of Finance on the 15th, and then you 2 weeks.
Yeah, so it's several weeks, so we're probably looking at least that. So, yeah, guessing a town meeting, unless this board votes not to go to a town meeting, would then be probably after Labor Day when we're looking at it. We don't want to do it for a holiday, you don't have to stay here for the Labor Day and that, so any changes you want to see to this document, if you can share them, send them to Robin, and share them, I can have the town attorney, and I'll have him look at adding some language to say that 10,000 is one amount.
Did we, just for where we are here now, did I understand that we tended to agree that the 15% was 15% addition if they ever had to pay it back was not a good idea? Or
No, I think that we had asked for that language to be added last meeting.
Right.
So that is 15%
Of the total.
of the total sale price. So
still,
if it's 50,000 plus zero,
yeah,
because there was no profit from the sale of property, then it's
Sold
zero.
it for 350.
no.
Yeah, so that's just to talk, like, if the investment
Again,
leads to a profit, then
Okay.
again,
piece of that.
this will be our side to you, and then we'll toss the ball to you. You'll take a look at what we finally sent to you with your attorneys, and then you may kick it back to us, and when we agree on the language, so. It's okay, I can see you doing the calculation. but I may
Do you
not.
have a copy of the current agreement that we can look at?
No, I
I
just
know it's
have,
gotta go back to your attorney.
gotta go back to our-
Changes, but just maybe we can.
when we have one that we decided on, then I'll send it back to you.
Okay, I just didn't think we could.
I didn't yet because we hadn't,
Get a look
this
at it
board hadn't
before
looked
that,
at it yet.
just in
That's
case
why,
we have some-
the only reason I didn't send it to you is this board didn't have an opportunity to look at it before the meeting, so it's nothing that we've sat on. So that's why I asked if they can send me their changes quickly.
I mean, I don't, for sake of efficiency, I don't have a problem with them seeing it before we give feedback.
I don't either, this isn't very efficient to look at again, and I'll send them, if you have no other changes except adding this one piece, I would think in the next day or so we could have it from Ryan to them. And then
I
you
just
take-
thought we could get an advanced
you
look
take
at it,
that.
just in case we see
Yeah.
something jump up.
There's a
maybe
lot
that's-
of little language
Yeah,
change.
yeah. That's
The
what I
big
mean.
change was the financial change we talked about.
Okay.
All right, John, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the
All right,
last,
just I think there was another question that John had that I might be able to answer. He had a lot of concern before about the attorney, who we're using for attorney and all that other stuff, and we have been given permission by the attorney now to release their name publicly, so we wanted
Excellent.
to deal with that.
okay,
So the attorney we were using was Justin Murphy from Kahan Kerensky Capicella. They did, in fact, he had to make sure it was verified with all of the partners before we released it publicly. We got permission the day of the closing to release it publicly, and we will make some sort of hoopla about the fact that they did donate all of their services
Right. will
completely.
he be looking at the new agreement for you?
Yes.
They
Or
were
our
still, they're
hours
still on
version of-
board,
okay.
they're still on board, right, and they have donated everything so far.
Then we'll know if somebody calls, but we'll at least know they are actually
Yes,
working on
well,
it.
and that's why I thought, we weren't trying to be secretive, but they hadn't talked to all of their partners yet, and they needed to make sure all their partners knew before it was public.
Thank you for
That they-
sharing.
Because it was, make sure they all knew they were donating the weight.
All right, well, thank you again. So you'll get that to me, I'll get the language in, and we'll share it with the two of you, the final with the two of you, and then with Chief Snyder. All right, at our last meeting, next item, at our last meeting, we talked about some culvert draining flooding issues at 130 Turnpike Road. Troy?
Well, you and I took a walk out there
We did.
and came up with this like $30,000 to $40,000 price. I'm not really sure where he came up with that. I went off the state bid for the pipe, the stone, loom, grass seed, hay, pretty much everything to do it. It would probably take us 3 to 4 days with our public works crew, and I came up with a price between $3,800 and $4,200 to do that. The only concern that I do have is that we need either some kind of right of way to get in there to clean that plunge pool out at some point.
And who would do the tree removal?
Yeah, and the tree removal, there's like 2 or 3 trees there that need to come down. If he would do something like that, or he expects us to do that, I'm not sure.
Thank you for looking at this further. We did go out there and take a look. Troy and I walked the property. Jacob, Mr. Cross was okay with us heading out there just so we could see what we were looking at. And by we, I mean Troy could understand it much better. And finding a solution that didn't put another unnecessary burden on the homeowner, but 30 to 40,000 was a frightening number from the town side, to say the least. So, before we asked Carl exactly what that 40,000 was going to be made up of, Troy thought he had a solution that would alleviate the problem. I do recall at our last meeting, the homeowner saying that he'd be willing to allow an easement under the property so that we could go on for that. So I think let's start with, if you want to start with contacting him, and let's communicate with him the plan that you have and the work that would need to be done and work out from there. So this estimate could then include tree removal and tree and stump removal.
Yeah, there was 2 dead pines. I mean, basically they're no good anyway. So.
And then we need an easement of some sort so that we can take a truck onto the property in order to clean it out in after future uses. So this is a good side. It's much better amount than what I think anyone had hoped. So I would reach out to the homeowners and we'll go from there.
Sure.
All right. Thank you. All right, good and welfare. So I have a couple of items. I first want to mention that CIP is going to be in need of a recording secretary. So if there's anyone watching, anyone reading our minutes, or anyone here who's interested, they can contact the Selectman's office. CIP will begin in December and run through end of February, ideally. So that is a great need for the town. I want to thank Eileen Smith for the excellent job she did on our minutes from our last meeting, as well as filling in the Selectman's office while Robin was on vacation. The the Parks and Rec Department is running their summer camp. This is the second year Maureen has run it after a 7-year hiatus, and it was incredibly successful this year. So they end next week. If your kiddos didn't get out there this year, sign up next year because I think they're having a great time. So kudos to them. I do want to mention that next week on August 14th, Willington Pizza celebrates their 41st anniversary. We seem to have missed their big 40th, and we just look for something probably at our next meeting to kind of honor them. They're a great partner with the town. They're always there when someone needs them. I don't think there's anyone in this room who probably hasn't had Willington Pizza. If you haven't,
If so,
head on,
identify yourself,
if
please.
so, head on down.
Get out.
So congratulations to them. Yeah, congratulations to them. Get yourself a red potato pizza. And we're very fortunate to have them here in Willington. They bring lots of recognition, not just to their own business, but to the town. And the owner is incredibly philanthropic with this town and surroundings, so. As you all know, taxes are due last week on August 1st. None of us can avoid them. So the tax office was incredibly busy. Janice and Michelle did an incredible job. Robin stepped in a day last week when things got really harried at the last hour, and we have to date collected $7,442,705.72 of our $13.2 million tax roll. So kudos to them. Again, it was incredibly busy. And I just want to mention that our thoughts are with those victims, residents, and injured in both Dayton and El Paso. Our state police, Troop C, has reached out to us specifically asking about any large events we have going on in our town and surrounding towns through now in the fall, so that they can have a presence, so that people can feel comfortable. They are willing to come out and speak to groups so that we can do what we can to keep ourselves and our residents safe. So I know we have concerts every Wednesday, and our WIllington BOS Fire Department is there, and they have an ambulance there. But I have reached out and will be asking if the troop can certainly swing by. If you have any other events going on in the fall that you think you need some help with, let us know. I know the church does the flea market, and so I'll be mentioning that to Lieutenant Palmer as well. And anything else for good and welfare? All right, with that, I move to adjourn at 7:44.